Hey guys and girls, sorry I can't be there with you again today. I am waiting for my COVID test results to come back, hoping that they're negative, and then I will be back with you as soon as I can. In the meantime, I'm making another video for you so that I can still kind of teach even though I'm not there with you. I miss all of you. Hopefully I'll be back soon. Today we are looking at problem 2.3 with variables. It's talking about interpreting graphs. So being able to read the story of a graph and trying to figure out how to match stories with graphs. So your book page is telling you that there are a couple of things that you can do to help you with this. It's telling you to think about when you're looking at a story or a graph or a table to see if you can figure out what the variables are. To ask yourself, does one variable depend on the other? That will help you figure out what is the dependent and what is the independent variable. And then take a look at the shape of the graph. The shape of the graph definitely will tell you a story and it'll help you understand the relationship between the variables. So just as an introduction, your book page gives you two different graphs and it asks you to think about those graphs as a story that takes place in your school parking lot throughout the day. Graph number 2 on the right-hand side is what you would normally see throughout the day in a school parking lot. So you have an incline as teachers and staff come in for the day, and then all the cars just kind of sit in the parking lot. So you have that straight line across as the school day goes on. And then when the school day is over, you have your cars leave for the day and everybody goes home. Graph number 1, something's happening in the middle to make that huge rise, that peak there. And so if I were there with you, I would ask you, what are some things that would happen to make that peak there? So we're thinking about things that would have people come in to the parking lot. So maybe there is an assembly in the middle of the day. Maybe there isn't school that day, but the teachers come in, they park, and then we have conferences. So at conference time, all of those cars come in, fill the parking lot, and then when conferences are over, those people leave. And then when teachers are done for the day, they leave and the parking lot's empty. So you can look at a graph and you can tell a story from the graph just by the way that the graph is. So what you're is looking at some graphs and some stories and trying to match them up. So I'm going to flip my camera and I'm also going to make this a little bit bigger here if technology will work with me. There's a nice close-up of my messy bedroom right now where I'm hanging out. And I'm going to take you back to look at what you talked about yesterday. And what I want you to focus on is a couple different things. I want you to focus on underlining or highlighting keywords that you find in your story that'll help you find the variables. And then I want you to be able to write those variables on the graph. So I've kind of started this for you, especially since I'm not there with you. And hopefully your substitute and Mr. Spencer and Miss Susan can walk around and help you out with this. And you'll be able to work with your turn and talk partner. I want you to be able to think about what we did yesterday, where we talked about the number of customers willing to take the bike tour. And we said the number of customers willing to take the bike tour depends on the cost of the tour. So we said that if we have number of customers, and this is what I would want you to be able to do, is highlight number of customers, because that's one thing we're talking about, one variable. And the number of customers, we said, depended on the price, because when we said, would you pay $150? We had like 76 people say, yes, I would pay $150. And then we kept raising the price and raising the price. And we said, would you pay $500? Would you pay $550? And when we got to $600, nobody said they would pay that much. So the cost was a big factor in that. Cost is our other variable. Okay. Usually price and time are the two big variables that are our independent variables. Okay. So the number of people willing to take the tour depended on the cost. So this word depends, helps tell us where our dependent and independent variables go. So cost is just a number. We can list a whole bunch of different costs, and those would go on the x-axis right here on our graph. And I'm going to move this for a minute so I can write it. Okay. So the less the cost was, like if it was only $150, we had a lot of people say they would pay that much. When we got over to $500 and $600, nobody said they were going to pay that much, or not very many people said they would pay that much. And over here on the side, we had our number of customers. Okay, so this is what you're going to be working on your lab sheet today. And I went ahead and started it for you. So when you get your lab sheet, I did one of them for you because it's very similar to what we just talked about. The very first one, a school trip, I highlighted the number of students. It says the number of students who go on a school trip is related to the price of the trip. So just like we talked about, the number of people willing to take the bike tour was related to the cost. Now we have number of students who take a field trip, and that's related to the price of the trip. So if the trip doesn't cost a lot of money, a lot of students would probably be willing to go. If the field trip costs a lot of money, you'll probably have students that won't be able to go. They won't be able to afford it. Their parents might say, no, I'm not going to pay $50 for you to go on a field trip. That's a ridiculous amount of money. And so your graph should look just like the one that we were just talking about, which is over here, graph number 2. This is also in your book on your online book page. I didn't want you to have to flip back and forth through your book pages, but it is available online on your book pages. So if you're trying to do this at home and you don't have the worksheet, it is in your Schoology under resources through your book link. So you still have access to what we're working on. Okay. Now, I went through on your lab sheet. I also wrote down that graph number 2 matches the title of a school trip, and that a school trip matches graph number 2. If you need a pause to go ahead and take those notes, go ahead and pause this video. And then I also went through and I highlighted for you our variables in each of the stories. So for skateboarding, you should highlight speed and time. For bathwater, you should highlight water level and time. And again, go ahead and pause if you need to so that you can get this down. For amusement park, you should highlight waiting time and number of people. For dog food, amount of food and time of year. And daylight hours, number of hours and seasons. And then our last one, movie attendance. You should have highlighted weekly attendance and time passes. And then to give you a good start with your graphs, the really nice thing is every single one of these where you have highlighted 2 different variables, at least one of your variables highlighted as time. So when you go to your graphs and you need to indicate your independent and dependent variables, you can write time on the x-axis for every single one of these. Okay? So go ahead and do that. Take some time with your turn and talk partner to see if you can match these graphs. It does get a little tricky because there may be a graph that you might find just, and if you get stuck or frustrated and you think this just really isn't a good fit, just go ahead and draw your own graph if you want. Okay? And then we're going to watch another video when you're done that will go over answers with you. So take some time, turn and talk, work through your answers, ask for help if needed. And then when it looks like most of you are finished, we will go ahead and go over answers together. Okay, try your best. I believe in you.